So for this demo, what we've done is we have a tenant called dev that exists on the ACI fabric today. We've already configured the policy for the VRF, the bridge domains. Endpoint groups have a one-to-one mapping to our bridge domains. And then the endpoint groups talk through a contract to allow for communication. And what you're going to see is we're going to take this entire configuration, this tenant dev, we're going to use the save as feature in ACI to save down the XML version of this tenant, and we're going to rename the tenant to prod. So what you're literally going to see is I'm going to rename just the tenant name as prod, and we're going to get to keep all of the constructs that we already have, the VRF, bridge domains, subnets, our application, the security policy that we already have defined from dev. We're moving all of that and just calling it tenant prod, right? Once that tenant prod is available on ACI, what you're going to see is that we're going to go in and we're going to swap the port groups in vSphere from our vNICs on our VMs. So we're literally going to move MyApp1 and the vNICs here into the right port groups for MyApp1 in production. And then we're going to be done. Before we get started with the demo, I want to go under the hood just a little bit and show you what we have from a configuration perspective. We're actually using VMM integration with ACI, between ACI and vSphere, to accomplish what we're doing in the demo. So from a domain perspective, under our respective EPGs, you can see we don't have any physical domains, but we have the VMM domain for our vSphere controller. And what this is doing from a vSphere perspective, you can see that we've got 4 different port groups that are going to show up in the demo itself. 2 for dev and 2 for prod. And over to the right here, you can see the different VLAN encapsulations. These encaps are presented to vSphere from ACI by way of that VMM integration. And what this allows us to do is once we create the prod tenant with the different endpoint groups, even though they're the same name, the same application name, the tenant name is different. And when we attach this EPG in MyApp1 under prod tenant, this is going to create a different port group in vSphere, which allows us to do the migration of our VM NICs from dev to prod. All right, welcome back. Now on to the demo. What I'm going to show you here is just a representation of what I showed you in the drawing already, and that's the dev tenant. Inside of our dev tenant, we've got one application called MyApp1 with a couple of different EPGs, 2 different bridge domains, and you can see the subnets that we have on both of those respective EPG or bridge domains, 1 VRF and then a contract. In the EPGs themselves, the domain only has a VMM domain. There's no physical domain. And then you can see that we have a contract that I showed you below that is provided here and then consumed on EPG2. From an operational perspective, I'd like to show you really quick that you can see that you have we have an EPG VM9 here, 102.1.1.10, and if I do an if config on the VM here, you can see that that's who this guy is here, right? And from EPG2, we can look at VM10 that is over here, and we can take a look and see, hey, this is who he is. And just so everyone can see this is actually live, I'm pinging the gateway of ACI, and then if I wanted to, I can also ping VM9 from VM10 and vice versa. So we've got data plane traffic that is running. Also, I'd like to show you that currently there is no dev or there's no prod tenant. So I'm not trying to fudge you on what we're seeing here. What we're going to do is now that I've kind of showed you what's going on here, we're going to copy down our dev tenant. So we'll go save as. Now the save as window has several different options you can choose. All properties means it is the configuration plus. It's the configuration plus statistics and concrete objects like endpoints and other things like that. Extraneous data that you don't need. I just want the configuration. The scope is, do I want just the self? Do I just want the tenant configuration itself? No, I want everything in the tenant. So I want the tenant and then everything underneath. That's the subtree option. And then the export format, that's for you to choose. I like XML personally. So we're going to download this XML file, and then we're going to come in and we're going to literally change it. So before I change the name, I'm going to get rid of the IM data here that just frankly muddies up things. And I'm going to pretty up the file so you guys can see it better by indenting it. I'm using Sublime Text. Going to get rid of the distinguished name, the DN. Then I'm going to change the name to prod. And that is the only thing I'm going to change in this file. Save as. We will save it to tenant prod. Yes, it's overwriting. Now there are a couple different ways that we can go about adding the tenant back in by posting it. The simplest way that I'm going to show you is I'm actually going to create the prod tenant here. And there we go, prod tenant. And literally there's nothing in this tenant. It is an empty shell. No networking, as you can see, no VRFs, nothing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight on prod, which is the tenant level. I'm going to click post, and I'm going to go find my tenant prod. I'm going to click open and post. And boom, you can see all of a sudden I've got 2 APGs, 2 bridge domains, a VRF, and a contract. All of that showed up once I posted that in there. So the tenant, the configuration policy has been rendered into ACI, but we haven't moved the application over. And let me show you that I can say that definitively. Let me refresh so you can see that everything is kosher. VM9 here, his port group in vSphere is dev myapp1 EPG1. And then CentOS 6 VM10, his port group is dev myapp1 EPG2. So at this point, now that we have the configuration available, we're going to go about the process of migrating the VMs into the prod tenant from our dev environment. Now, I could right-click on the CentOS 10 here and go down to edit settings and change the port group that way, but that's no fun. So I'm actually going to use the PowerShell CLI that I have on my MacBook to send the commands natively. So I am in PowerShell already. And by the way, the commands that I'm about to show you, I'm going to make those available in the blog post so that you can play with this yourself. And I've just got a ping going from VM9 to VM10 so you can kind of see what's going on here. The syntax for PowerShell here is I'm going to get the VM, which is VM9. I'm going to get the network adapter and then set that network adapter to the port group that I desire. And then this -confirm string false tells us that we don't want to have to confirm anything. We just want to be able to make it do its thing. I'm going to copy both of those commands. And you're going to see a little interruption in service as we move these over. Let's see here. Yep, it stopped right there. And it's going to start right back any second. And there it goes. So let me go and refresh vSphere real quick. And you can see that, boom, port group has been updated from dev to prod myapp1 EPG2 and prod myapp1 EPG1 respectively. And if we hop into ACI and we go down to EPG1, we're going to see that this endpoint has now popped up as a learned endpoint in our new tenant. So in under about 5 minutes, we have migrated an application from dev to prod, same security posture, same configurations and everything. Thanks for watching. For more videos and how-to guides, come to unofficialaci guide.com.